Hello, and welcome to Love, Light, and Healing with Colette Lopane Capella. I'm Colette Lopane Capella, a licensed mental health counselor, Reiki practitioner, EMDR therapist, and healer. I'm founder and director of New Day Vitality, located in Larchmont, New York, where we provide a holistic, alternative approach to psychotherapy and counseling. We offer individual, couples, group, family therapy, as well as Reiki energy healing and EMDR therapy. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to bring this show to the public and the beautiful community of Larchmont and Mamaroneck. A little bit about me: I'm a wife, a fur mommy, a mommy to be aside from fur mommy, an entrepreneur, and a true healer at heart. I've been practicing for many years and have had the profound honor of being a part of so many beautiful journeys to wellness and helping individuals live and be the best version of themselves, mind, body, and spirit. This show is to bring together the mind, body, and spirit through love, light, wellness, and healing. The show will be informative, helpful, and fun, so sit back, relax, and enjoy all the beauty this show will provide you. Each episode will bring on an expert guest to discuss important different topics that bridge the mind, body, and spirit, and the beauty of when it's all tied in together. Experts will vary from energy healers, teachers, nurses, crystal healers, psychiatrists, doctors, therapists, psychologists, psychics, mediums, yogis, and all healers or light workers, as I like to call us. So we are so lucky because we have Joel back now for a second episode. So if you hadn't seen the episode before, he came on and he did a great, amazing job. And so I was we need more.
Colette. Thank you.
So we don't have to do an introduction or anything. We're just going to jump right in.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about, well, you're trained hypnosis, yeah? And tell me how you kind of use hypnosis in treatment in psychotherapy.
Yeah, I basically use hypnosis with every client that I work with. Even if it's, not even, but for generalized anxiety, for example, it's helpful. At minimum, it helps reduce anxiety level. Wow. Just to get out of the verbal, sort of traditional verbal exchange, and just sort of retreat into yourself, even if you don't go into a deep hypnotic state. I know we don't have time to get into all the ins and outs of it, but if you don't go into a deep hypnotic state, even if it's a mild state, you're going to feel more relaxed afterwards. So almost like a good yoga class or
I love that.
Meditation, deep meditation. I tailor it specifically to go beyond just general anxiety, most specifically around, and we were touching upon it in the earlier episode in terms of the types of folks I work with. I use it a lot with performance artists, and we talked about that in the earlier episode in terms of stumbling blocks, to tap into their subconscious and to help them learn about or get back to the concept of play.
Oh,
for people who play instruments or play roles, etc. So I'll help bring them back to their childhood, and usually very, very young ages. If they were actors or singers, they did school performances, I'll get them back to, say, 5th grade, 3rd grade. If they were athletes, played soccer when they were 6, 7, and they're professionals now, I'll get them back to there. And the whole idea, and I've talked about this before, is to connect with the idea of play.
Yeah.
And just to talk about it this way is not enough.
Yeah.
I actually help people visualize and get them back if it's soccer, onto the pitch, the smell of the grass. If their parents are around, the parents cheering for them, which parents used to actually do, cheer, and not scream and say, scream at the it used to be a little calmer. And so that's the idea. I use it a lot with performance artists, and it can be very helpful.
I can imagine.
A lot with trauma, of course.
I was just going to say, you know what it reminds me of while you're talking about this inner child work, like trauma work. Yeah,
100%.
Wow.
Again, to go beyond the traditional, because you can only go so far in this dimension, so it helps people go to deeper dimensions within their selves, and it's best when it's really working. The defenses go down, and then you're tapping into very, very deep aspects of the self. Sometimes you have to be very careful and very well trained in this because you're revisiting the trauma.
Of course.
And then the idea is to revisit it and then work it through.
Yeah.
Through the hypnosis. And
Amazing.
it could be one session, it could be 2, 3, 4, but primarily with trauma, PTSD, a lot of war vets, unfortunately, victims of horrific crimes and things of that nature.
Wow.
Violations.
You know what it reminds me of too is like a little bit of EMDR. Right?
Very similar. Yeah, I mentioned earlier, I trained in that recently. There's a lot of overlap between it's just different techniques.
Exactly.
But the end goal, so to speak, speaking of sports, the end goal is the same. It's to really tap into the subconscious mind, have your defenses go down, especially for people who are not very verbal. Like I work with, getting back to the males that I work with, sometimes I find it a little bit threatening to open themselves up in a conscious state.
Of course.
In a subconscious state, and I'm going to laugh, but it's not, it's just that it's almost bringing a smile to my face. You almost don't have a choice.
Yeah.
There's a few people that hold on so tight for dear life, and they have a willing, because you obviously have to be willing to go there.
Yeah.
If they're willing to go there, they open up, and whatever they're holding on to, they release.
It's
and now real people are in the room.
Yeah.
And the real stuff starts coming out. Not just verbal jabbering.
Oh, I love that. I love how you use that. It's like a combination, but it works.
Yeah.
And you use it basically with every client, you said.
Even at the bare minimum for people who have mild anxiety, it helps. But oftentimes I have people that have much, deeper rooted issues or come with specific issues such as performance blocks and trauma.
I want to get trained on it now. Maybe you can train me.
You can talk more afterwards, huh? I can train.
I know that you also see psychotherapy more as an art than a science. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it gets back into what we were talking about earlier in terms of the relationship being key.
Okay.
So there are different schools of thought on this.
Of course.
People are very into the scientific nature and measurements and things, and God bless. I'm just not, it doesn't resonate that strongly for me. I see it more as an art, getting back to what I talked about in the earlier episode about music, which is an art form. I see it as an art in the sense that you can't really measure with a ruler the progress. You can feel it and sense it, and more importantly, the client feels and senses that something is happening, something is changing, and obviously it has to manifest itself in real life results. It's not just like lovey-dovey, I feel changes. It starts manifesting itself in changes in their everyday life. But the art in it is connecting with that individual one-on-one, connecting with their soul, if they believe in that, connecting with their spirit and believe in that, but connecting with them on a deep level. And that to me is not science, respectfully.
I agree.
Even though I talked about energy in the early episode, etc., it's more an art. And to develop that art, it takes years. It takes years to do this. It takes years to get very good at it. People may argue whether I'm good or not. I don't know. But I know in my thank you. In my mind, it took a long time for me to perfect, or perfect is never perfection. That's the beauty in this. But to feel proficient in this art form.
Exactly.
It took me a long time.
Of course.
And once you start feeling that, and the client feels it,
things take off. I had a couple clients say to me before.
Yes, things take off.
Literally take off.
Yeah.
I've had a couple clients say to me before, they're like, I feel like you planted a seed in me, Colette, and I don't know when you did it or when it happened, but I'm changing and things are growing, and
it's beautiful.
And it's like one of those things you're like, oh, right, like everything opens up. It's it aligns.
It makes all the hard work.
Yes,
really,
yes. And it's like, you're right, I believe I'm very similar thought with you. It's not really like the science, it's more of an art. So I'm not sitting there figuring out the numbers of the change. It's like when someone says something like that and you're like, well, what's growing? And they name 3 things, you're like, oh, okay.
That's why I think these measurement tools can be very skewed.
I have a great
a lot of times these, frankly, insurance companies ask for them. Where are you on the Beck depression inventory? Where are you? I'm not saying it doesn't have value, but it could be very skewed. It doesn't really show you the whole picture.
Exactly.
And there are arguments that say, well, how do you know on the other end? Well, you know what? You have to trust.
Yeah, there's intuition.
There's intuition, that you have to trust that your client feels it. But more importantly, you're seeing the changes in their life.
Yeah, and they're reporting it, right? You're seeing it,
you're seeing it, you're hearing it. You don't need a ruler for it.
I agree.
So that's why I see it as an art.
I agree with you. What do you, and actually this question sort of connects to what we were just talking about, but what do you think the most important aspect of the clinician-client connection is?
Well, essentially what we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier. It's really safety. We didn't really talk about that safety, which is, connected with the idea of a relationship
Yep.
and connection. But safety in the room. I'm very big on the room and what's happening in the room.
Yeah.
That thing, again, getting back to art, you can't measure how somebody feels right for you or doesn't. Sometimes people don't feel right for me, and vice versa. And it doesn't happen that much, but there are times when I feel we're not in sync. Speaking of music, although not one of my favorite groups, but they're okay. But in sync. No, I'm bringing a little old school reference just for the Justin Timberlake fans.
they're pretty
But when you're not, they're okay. But the in syncness is not there.
Yeah.
And
just
they
know.
feel it, and you
know.
feel it.
Yep.
Most of the times it happens over the phone.
Yep.
That you can tell and they could tell. And thankfully I have a repertoire of people that I could refer to you. Of course, now I have lovely Colette that I could add to my list. So that we can say, no, let's see, maybe you'd be better off. Because you just don't know.
Exactly.
You just don't know. You can't figure it out. And you know that sometimes it just clicks.
Yep.
The moment you open your mouth, the moment they open their mouth.
It's like a puzzle piece. It has to fit.
And
you know
they know
when it's not fitting.
And it's not, you can't measure it.
Yeah.
You just feel it.
You feel it.
And then once that's there, you have that as a foundation. And then, of course, trust develops as a result of the safety and as a result of the comfort, the rapport. Then the work really can soar, as we did earlier.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, definitely.
Yeah.
I also understand that you use humor as a large part of your work.
Humor? No.
Humor.
Would I do that?
Maybe. Yes. Can you explore that or tell the audience and myself a little bit more about that and why?
I think it's critical to, because the work itself can be so heavy.
Exactly.
And, exposing yourself to essentially at the beginning, a stranger, exposing your life to a stranger is incredibly difficult and incredibly painful. And it's not always easy work with me. I know that. I make people work. I mean, I try to be loving and compassionate and supportive, but we're here to work. And I know that. And I think there are times, maybe because of my background in sports as well, there are times when you just need to let your hair down so the team will go out, instead of practicing that night, we'll go out bowling and pizza, maybe have a few beers or whatever.
Yeah.
We weren't 21 at the time.
Team building stuff,
So
exactly.
it's the same thing. Sometimes you just have to break up the tension in the room.
I agree.
And it also gets back to the whole concept of authenticity.
Yep, I agree.
That you reveal your true self, even though you may not be taught this in graduate school, to show yourself, this is who I am. I can't help it. Now I can't always say I'm funny, but I can't help not trying to be funny because it's part of the way I am. I think a good percentage of the time I hit the mark.
You're funny.
So
And I think clients
Not always.
appreciate that too, right? Because you're a real person.
And it also brings that out in them.
Yes.
And that also is a way of healing. I believe that humor is a great way to heal.
Yeah.
And not take yourself too seriously, because the fine line between being there to focus on the self and self-absorption and, as you know, and getting into the fancy schmancy terms of narcissism, there's a fine line. So sometimes you got to get over yourself a little bit and just realize, you know what? We could have a little laugh at this.
Yeah, exactly.
And it breaks the ice, and just say, you know what? Maybe it's not as critical as I think it is.
Yeah.
What's going on right now? It's a little bit of this too shall pass.
Yeah.
And that gives them license to realize, you know what? Maybe I can move past this.
I can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
agree with you.
timing. Speaking of comedy.
Oh, yeah.
As with comedians, timing and delivery, you have to know when to insert it
course.
and when not to. You're not going to joke around when something really heavy is going on in a heavy situation where it requires in-depth exploration. You start joking about it, obviously that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But there are times you need to do it.
That it's appropriate.
At least
agree.
I feel you need to do it.
I agree. I agree. I think I'm funny. I don't know how funny I am, but I think I'm pretty funny.
No, you're funny.
I try.
You're funny.
You're good,
You're
you.
funny. You're good. Yeah.
What movie is that?
Goodfellas.
But what's the one where it's a therapist movie too? He says you're good.
Oh,
you.
Analyze This.
Yes.
You're good.
You're good, you.
Billy Crystal and
Yes.
Robert De Niro.
Best movie.
It's a classic.
Best
It's been referenced a lot of times by my clients.
Me too. Oh, it's hysterical.
Not Analyze That. I heard that wasn't such the follow-up movie.
Oh,
wasn't so great.
analyze this.
That was a follow-up movie to Analyze This.
Oh, that's what.
It wasn't as good. And you're good.
You're
You were good.
he's my favorite.
That's fantastic.
I also know that you do couples therapy, and with couples therapy, there's so many different approaches, right? What's your approach like?
Most importantly, again, is connecting.
Yep.
I want to stay consistent right now. It's connecting, but in terms of a modality I use, it's primarily what's called imago relations therapy, which is just to distill it down. It really, it kind of, for lack of a better term, it forces the partner to mirror and listen to the other partner rather than do what they do at home, which is argue, kick and scream, and go back and forth. I don't permit it.
Yeah.
So although I'm not a big rules person, there are pretty strict ground rules with the couples work.
Okay.
One speaks, the other listens. The only person that's allowed to speak other than the partner is me. So I got to get off my ego trip part a little bit. But I can interject when I'm hearing something that's sort of underneath the surface, and then I'll reflect it back to the couple. But they can't respond to it. So one speaks, the other mirrors back, and the whole idea is to get into the other shoes of your partner, because oftentimes we're fixed in our positions.
Of course.
So the basic premise behind it also is to fuse past and present. So you want to know about the underlying issues that happened in childhood that affect the way we are as adults, whether we're type A, type B, aggressive, passive, entitled, demanding, givers, takers. It doesn't come from thin air.
No.
We tap into the stuff that sort of laid the groundwork for it, and I guess at its best, the partner then develops empathy for their partner rather than antipathy towards them.
That makes sense.
You now empathize for the fact that they didn't really cause this part of their child. You don't have any control of that. Doesn't mean it's an excuse to act a certain way as an adult, but at least you know there's a backdrop to this.
There's more of an understanding.
And it lends one to be more empathetic when you have to mirror it back.
Yes.
So each one does it. I sort of go underneath the surface, and then we all talk together. And I'm just telling you, if the temperature in the room is 138, it goes down to 70 rapidly.
Wow.
And if they start kicking and screaming, fighting, I stop it right away. I do have to play referee, getting back to sports. No fighting, no arguing. Can't do it. I said, do it at home. You wait. You know, they're spending money to see me.
Yeah.
It's hard-earned money.
Yeah.
You can fight at home.
Yeah, but not here. I typically use like a lot of Gottman. And a lot of EFT, and EFT reminds you a little bit of what you're doing, right? It's similar in a lot of ways with the drawer and the pursuer and figuring out hearing. Oh, I like this. I'm going to have to do some research. So what do you think about the office setting and how it can be a really big factor in treatment?
That's a good question. I think it's important. I think you need to attend to it. You need to be, I think there's a fine line between making a place overly ornate and over the top, where it can be overwhelming and seems almost artificial.
Sure.
Getting back to authenticity, but you want to have it calm. Use soothing colors. Make sure your chairs are comfortable.
That's so important.
For me, actually, the space itself, I like being in a space that has a view. I mean, that's just me. But I happen to be lucky that I'm facing the Hudson, and my clients are facing, more importantly, they're facing it. It's a really large office with 3 bay windows, and it creates a calming environment.
Sure.
I mean, so I'm pretty discerning about that. So I think it's critical that, because people will feel it, because I've been, when I, in my training and, going through therapy in the city, when I was living in the city in the time, most of the offices are little hovels. And
like they look like closets.
They look like broom closets. And automatically you feel, if you already don't feel claustrophobic, you're going to feel it then. It feels uncomfortable, and it's just not the right environment. So I do think environment is key, whenever you can procure it. Not everyone has the luxury to do that, but if you can.
But I agree with you. Yeah, definitely. Is there anything else that you do in your work that you consider to sort of be unconventional or unique?
I'm not sure if it's unconventional. It probably is. But, because I've been doing this work a long time.
30 years.
On and off. I sold jewelry. I did other
30
things.
years.
Probably about a good solid 25. Wow. So I've been doing it a while. So as I was saying earlier, either in this episode or the last, I don't recall, we've been sort of, that, you have to learn all the rules and know what to break. But you need to know all the rules that are out there. So I've learned pretty much everything. I mean, I've done a ton of training, continue to do that. But I think the unconventional side to me is just getting back to the concept of authenticity. I will use colorful language with people, oftentimes very salty language, if I feel that it's appropriate and that they'll accept it. And sometimes I don't know if they're going to accept it until I use it. So actually, I should qualify that. I don't know if they're going to accept it, but it's me.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever found a time that anyone has said, don't say that or
Or been
don't do
offended,
that.
yeah.
No, they actually seem to welcome it.
Exactly. I agree.
Because it's so real, it's so raw, it's unfiltered. But obviously, you have to have and I do like Justin Timberlake, by the way. Getting back to in sync, when you have that in syncness, you feel like you can give yourself license to do that.
Exactly.
Not right out of the gate. Sometimes out of the gate, but not most times not out of the gate. So I don't know if that's unconventional. I think a lot of people, especially when they're first starting out, are very self-conscious about the way they present themselves, and you're taught to speak properly and don't ever reveal this, don't share anything. I feel like most of that goes out the window.
I agree.
I'll share sometimes if I think it's appropriate. Won't share when I don't think it's appropriate. Is that conventional, unconventional? I don't know. But I have a potty mouth. For sure.
It works for you. It works.
It works for me because it's me being me.
Exactly.
And there's a method behind the madness.
Yeah.
It's also to really kind of shake the trees generally with folks, to get them out, we were talking earlier, wake them out of their slumber.
Yeah.
And I generally had very good results with that. And I feel it also makes me feel comfortable.
Yeah.
If I'm talking to people day in and day out, I can't be an artifice.
Yeah.
I can't be.
Be real.
It's not good. It's not healthy personally.
Yeah.
But I think I'm doing a disservice to the clients. I'm not saying that's all I do is curse.
Yeah.
I would hope that's not all I do. But it is part of what I
not.
do that may not be conventional, because I think a lot of people are very self-conscious about
I agree.
doing things like that.
Yeah. We're so similar in so many ways. But when I first opened my practice, I was like very, very timid in a lot of ways, right? So
As
I would
as I was.
oh, so timid. I would come in like a suit and the high heels, and my hair would be perfect, my makeup and everything. I wouldn't share anything, and I wouldn't curse, and I was just like the perfect little therapist.
Right.
And I remember sitting there one day, and I was like so uncomfortable in the suit. I was like sweating, and I'm like, this isn't me. But I'm asking the person across from me to like show their authentic self, strip themselves, right? Lift the veil. And I'm sitting here in like this suit and being this person who's really not who I am. Yeah. And so what I did was I literally went home and I did this whole meditation. And I was like, I'm stripping myself of all of these layers of stuff that's not who I am. It's not aligning.
You're stripping yourself.
Stripping it.
Okay, careful. This is G-rated here.
Well, because I always use this example that I say that through the years of life, I feel like we take on different clothing, right?
Sure.
So there's a jacket from your mother. There's a sweater from your aunt. Right? And I feel like when we get older, we have to start to strip this off us 100%. And just be our naked true self. And
just being a wise guy.
Just be self. That's all you have to. Yeah. And so I went home and I was like meditating on it. And the next day I went in and I was like, I'm going to wear what I wear every day, and I'm not going to have like the perfect makeup and the perfect hair. And that's when my practice began to change so much.
Wow, that's amazing.
That everything I did, it was like I felt real and genuine before, but it really felt authentic.
I can totally relate to that.
Yeah,
we are very similar.
So we're unique, but we own it, right? We're asking the client to own.
No, it's 100%. You have to be consistent.
Exactly.
You just said you're gonna ask them to basically lift the veil, and you're gonna be that's buttoned up, uptight, afraid about what you say.
How could you do that?
God forbid I should point them in the right direction, because the books say I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And Freud and Jung, no.
Exactly.
And I'll talk about Freud till we could have 10 segments on Freud and Jung and all that.
Yeah.
But
you got to be real.
At some point, you just have to, like I said, just be you.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's part of you. I think my training is part of who I am, but my cursing is part of who I am.
And
my authenticity.
Own who you are.
Gotta own it.
Own it.
Gotta own it.
I have a good question for you here. And everybody always has like such a good story behind this, but what made you choose to become a therapist?
Wow, you do have good questions.
That's a good question.
They're challenging questions.
But you got it.
I could give you the typical response. I work with kids which is all true. I worked as a camp counselor. I think we talked earlier, I worked in an after-school program when I was 13.
Young.
The kids were 11. It's all typical stuff. Yeah, it contributed. Really what did it was I was working, it had a summer gig that my dad, rest in peace, that amazing man, got me, working as a janitor in a hospital. I was making $300 a week, which was a while ago. That's really good money for the son. It could be good money today for some folks, but really good money. So I was thrilled to have this. It was very difficult work, you know. But I remember I would go into the patients' rooms and I'd do my little. I assume I wasn't the expert mopper. My training was about 4 seconds, basically go out there. But I did what I did, you know. All of a sudden, the mop would be propped up against the wall, and I was 18, 19, and I found that these patients that had heart problems or very serious issues would just start opening up to me. And 5 minutes would turn into 10 minutes, would turn into, before you know it, I'm not cleaning the floors, but I'm having the equivalent of a session with these clients. And I realized they were taking to me.
Yeah.
And I said, there's something here. Yeah. Something's going on here because I'm really digging this.
And that was your signal.
I'm really liking this. And then I ended up going to school. I talked to one of my professors in psychology, and I explained this story to him. He said, Joel, you got to do this. This is your calling.
Yeah.
This is your calling. And so that was the epiphany.
That's amazing.
There were things that led up to it, but that was the epiphany. That summer.
I'm
not going to tell you the year, but that summer when I was 18.
Amazing. Yeah. So amazing. I think it takes a very, for every profession, but I think it takes a very unique person to be a therapist, right? I mean, there's just something that's...
Yeah, I don't think you can really learn.
Yeah, you can't.
To be a really good therapist.
No.
You could learn to be a therapist.
Yeah.
But as you know, unfortunately, there are a lot of not so good ones. And
but a story like this shows you that it was there.
I think you have to have it in your bones.
Yes, it was always
to
there.
Be, whether it's a therapist or a helper or a healer or just a person in human services, you have to have it in your bones. And I think a lot of people are misguided by thinking, getting back to one of the earlier segments, that that if they go to a certain school and follow a certain path, they're going to come out and be great because they have everything looks great on paper, but they don't have necessarily the best people skills or life experience, or don't have it in their DNA or their bones, and they fall flat.
I agree.
And they end up having to leave the field,
or
if they don't leave the field, they do a disservice.
Exactly.
Respectfully, they do a disservice to their clients.
Yeah.
I've seen too much of it over the years.
I agree.
Unfortunately,
but you have it in your DNA.
Well, a lot of people do, and it's wonderful to be around people like yourself and all the wonderful people I meet along the way. It's so uplifting because the work itself at times can be a little bit isolating because it's really you and the client.
And to be able to connect.
But to be able to connect and share and meet people that are really passionate about what they do, and then pass it on to their clients, and there's nothing better than that.
Thank you so much.
Well,
and by the way, we're done, again. Which is crazy.
We're done. Colette,
so
no, we can't be done.
I know. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode again.
So much. Thank you.
Such an honor.
Really, it was really fun and a pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you so much to our beautiful audience. We're privileged to have you a part of today's show. And until next time, love, light, and to all, and my famous namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.